Good morning, everybody. Hope you all had a great weekend. This is To the Point. What a weekend it was in the world of sports. Lots happening. I think the best football weekend of the year so far. When you put in the college and the NFL, just some phenomenal games. Trying to track it all. We had the NHL this weekend. The in-season tournament started in the NBA. Ugh. I did watch it, however. We got a lot to dive into today. There were some big wins, some big losses, a couple awesome games. Well, let's start with, to me, the game of the weekend, which was the Dallas Cowboys visiting their division rival, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are not as good as they were last year, which is surprising because I thought they'd be better. But they're not as good as they were last year. But after 9 games last year, they had an 8-1 record. And after 9 games this year, they have an 8-1 record. So they are, by record, the best team in the NFL as they enter their bye week. And you look at their secondary, and there are holes. Bradbury left the game yesterday, and Darius Slay got hurt. Relying on Kevin Byard, who just recently joined the team, to play a bigger role in the secondary. And the team takes penalties, a couple bullshit roughing the passer calls yesterday across the league. But the Philadelphia Eagles, led by Nick Sirianni, their head coach, here's what I appreciate about them. They know who they are. They know they have a quarterback that hasn't been as good as he was last year, but he, again, still 8-1. Have a team built on pass rushers like Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, the ageless wonder, Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean. They can get after you. And what the Eagles do maybe better than any team in the league over the last 2 years is they can close out games. They will keep a team in it. It'll be close down to the wire. But if they have a lead up 5 with 7 minutes to play, I'm going to bank on the Eagles winning that game. Because they'll get a turnover or they'll get a sack. Something will happen to benefit the Philadelphia Eagles. Over the last 3 weeks, I think Dak Prescott's played some really good football for the Dallas Cowboys. Beat the Chargers on a Monday night. I thought he played fantastic. Was really good against the Rams 2 weeks ago. And I thought he outplayed Jalen Hurts yesterday. He made a lot of good throws. He's starting to use his legs again. He's a dual threat. He's just a beast when he's running the football. And he didn't make many errors. Until with 30 seconds left, and you know you don't have any timeouts because you need to use your timeouts to get the ball back, you take that sack. Should the offensive line have done a better job on Josh Sweat? Sure. But it's also realizing the situation and noticing, okay, he's coming. I need to get the ball out of my hand. Because if he gets me to the ground, he's going to burn 15 seconds, which is what happened. And the Cowboys did not have time to get into the end zone and score a touchdown, and the Eagles hung on to win a tough home game. Dallas finds ways to lose games. They are the anti-closers. They are the front runner of front runners. If they get a 14-point lead, they'll beat you by 35. If they're down by 7 throughout the game, they'll find a way to lose it. That's been their story. And I look at Dallas and go, I love the way they're using CeeDee Lamb. He's not just, he's on the inside, he's on the outside, he's in slants, he's running goes, he's doing it all for that offense. Jake Ferguson is a blossoming tight end. Dak Prescott needs a tight end to throw to. He loved Dalton Schultz. He loved Jason Witten earlier in his career. Jake Ferguson is perfect for the offense. He's getting better by the week. and yet you play a great game, and the referees are trying to ruin the game with penalty after penalty on both sides. Both teams had 10 penalties for over 80 yards. So it wasn't as if they were just penalizing the Cowboys in this game. But there was some pass interference. There were some calls. You go, what the hell was that? That wasn't a penalty. But it's just moments for the Cowboys. In the fourth quarter, on fourth down, they throw the ball to Shoemaker. He gets tackled at the 1, but an inch short of scoring a touchdown. But it makes a difference because you get that touchdown, you would have won the game. You would have been in the driver's seat, but you come up short. Dak, towards the end of the game, can't find a way to score. Both coaches were aggressive from jump. The Eagles' opening drive, how about a 4th and 1 from their own 29? No problem, tush push, first down. They ended up going for 2 fourth down conversions on that drive, including a big chuck to Dallas Goedert. It was a really fun, highly contested game. But you look up and go, Philadelphia's 8-1, and Dallas is 5-3. It's a big difference there. Philadelphia lost their stinker to the Jets. And that's a loss that will haunt them because they'd love to be 9-0 and they'd have a 2-game cushion for best record in the NFL. Over everybody. Over the Ravens, who we'll talk about, and the Chiefs. But you're still 8-1. You're still beating everybody. You're still looking like a dominant team that's incredibly hard to beat at Lincoln Financial Field. You do not want to meet the Eagles at home. You want to get them on the road. I think the Cowboys have the same sentiment. And there are times I watch the Cowboys and go, this is the second best team in the NFC. They're both in the same division. Cowboys and Eagles. We've seen the warts of the 49ers. The Lions are a very good team, but do you trust them fully? Seattle, well, they definitely have their weaknesses. We saw them yesterday. But for Dallas, to me, you wake up this morning and you're angry because it's a game you should have won and you didn't. You were so close to getting the victory. You would have been tied. It would have been a game back in the division, but you have a game in hand over the Eagles because Dallas has already had their bye week. So Dallas sits at home this week. You win next week. You are first in the NFC East. Now you need to beat the Eagles again this year when you meet them at Jerry World, and you need to hope that they lose another game. And the Eagles do have a tough schedule. They got the Kansas City Chiefs 2 weeks from tonight on Monday Night Football, Week 11. Super Bowl rematch. Both teams coming off a bye. Can't wait for that one. But this is Dallas. It's always something with them. They just find ways to lose games. And again, I thought Dak's not the problem yesterday. He played great. He's played great since about week 4. But a red zone and you're an inch away, but that's, hey. Philadelphia won 28-23 and they had 4 touchdowns. That means they get down to that area, they score a touchdown. And A.J. Brown is big when you need him to be. Devontae Smith caught a touchdown. They're going to lose Dallas Goedert with a forearm injury for the next couple weeks. We'll find out the extent of it today. But to me, the Eagles have the ability to get better as the year continues to go on. Because they were in the Super Bowl last year. And they just beat, to me, I think the Cowboys are a better team than the Lions. I think the Cowboys, for whatever reason, they can't beat the 49ers. They just can't. It's in their head. Whenever they go play at that stadium, they lose. And that's just the thing. And it's tough because San Francisco is likely to win that division, so the Cowboys are never going to get them at home. You have to play San Francisco in San Francisco, and that's not easy. Dak's never played well there, and they seem to always get stomped. They've lost the last 2 years there in the postseason. So I think Dallas is as good as San Francisco. They have their number. It's a team they can't get by. For Philadelphia, you have the pass rushers. You have the offensive weapons. Their running game is strong when you need it to be. Dallas stopped them in the first half. Second half, Swift just ran the football down the throat of the Dallas Cowboys. Didn't matter. Swift, Gainwell, Jalen Hurts on scrambles. They found ways to run the football. So with the strong running game, one of the best offensive lines in football. Pretty great quarterback. A.J. Brown, who I think is like the second best receiver in the league. Devontae Smith, who's a former Heisman Trophy winner. Not bad. Had over 1,000 yards receiving last year. Goddard should be healthy when playoff time comes around. That's a strong, and you have probably the best place kicker in the NFL in Jake Elliott, other than Justin Tucker. That's a damn strong team. And that's a team that can travel, but you probably won't have to. Philadelphia's goal is simple. Let's do what we did last year. Home field throughout the playoffs. Make everybody come to Lincoln Financial in January, February when it's freezing. Outdoor stadium, and they have to deal with us. And our crazy-ass fans come beat us. Not an easy thing. For Dallas, I don't know if you can change it. We're going to talk about the Dolphins. They have the same problem. They don't beat good teams. You play a good team, you lose. Which, if you're a team, you go play a good team, you don't win that game, you know what that means? You're not a good team. You're not on that level. I titled this episode Cream Rising to the Top because I think this weekend it showed us who are really good and who isn't. Who went above and beyond? Who made a statement this weekend with their play and with their result? I think Philadelphia, despite the fact that it came down to the wire, the statement was, we won in the crunch minutes. We got the stop when we had to. We are 8-1 after 9 weeks going into our bye. That's pretty damn good. And Nick Sirianni seems a little corny, and he's kind of a weird dude in the sideline, but this team believes in what he's preaching. The Eagles fired Doug Peterson. It seemed like a crazy decision. And Doug Peterson's having a lot of success in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence, and he's turned around that team, that program. That team didn't have any life, and he's a Super Bowl winner, and he's done it. But this group, for whatever reason, and Nick Sirianni, they trust one another. They believe it. And I think this team knows we'll be good next year, but are we going to be as good? Jason Kelce, they win the Super Bowl. I don't think he comes back and plays because he almost retired this offseason. He might not be back. If he isn't around, then What's the offensive line like? How much longer is Lane Johnson going to play football? He's had a lot of injuries. He's gone through a lot in his life. Is he going to stick around if Jason Kelce retires? That's 2/5 of that offensive line. Need a new center. Need a new right tackle. Lane Johnson's allowed 1 sack in the last 4 years. Pretty incredible. So Philly's driven. They lost last year. They want that redemption. They head into the bye week. They play the Chiefs 2 weeks from tonight in Kansas City, Arrowhead Stadium, Super Bowl rematch. Can't wait. Speaking of Kansas City, Kansas City Chiefs are 7-2. That's the boilerplate headline. Kansas City scores 21 points in the first half. They score 0 in the second. And the Dolphins don't even cover the spread. I still don't trust the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they are in a much more difficult position than the Philadelphia Eagles. Because the Cincinnati Bengals are rising and a very good team. The Baltimore Ravens are 7-2, same record as the Chiefs, and have maybe the 2 most dominant wins of the season on their resume against the Lions and against the Seahawks yesterday. 2 teams with winning records. Still with winning records. Kansas City, they've done what they had to do. They beat the Chargers. You beat the Dolphins. You've gotten by. Oddly enough, with a team with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback and Travis Kelce at tight end, the strength of the Kansas City Chiefs is their defense. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Yesterday in Germany, what a great crowd for just a game in Germany, by the way. I'm sure the NFL was thrilled. I think that was a really big success, and it doesn't hurt that you have one of the best games of the season over there. But good on the NFL. And I didn't mind getting up for a 10:30 when it was this game. Next week, Colts-Patriots, not as sexy, but I'll probably still watch it. When Kansas City won their first Super Bowl, Tyreek Hill was up for an extension. And he wanted big money. And Kansas City was willing to give him some, but they weren't going to break the bank for a wide receiver because they knew they had to extend Patrick. Wanted to give Kelce some money. They brought in Orlando Brown for their second Super Bowl season to play left tackle. Joe Thuney on that offensive line. You go the defense. You can go through it, right? Well, Tyreek Hill said, I'm not going to take the money you're offering me. Let's work out a trade. And they worked together. He was either going to pick the Jets or pick the Dolphins. He said on his show he picked the Dolphins because of weather and the tax situation. So he goes to Miami. Miami gets a number 1 wide receiver. He's been phenomenal over the last 2 years. But since he's departed, Kansas City won the AFC West. Patrick Mahomes won the MVP of the league last year. They then went on to win the Super Bowl, and Patrick Mahomes won Super Bowl MVP. So, while Tyreek Hill is valuable, and the way Mike McDaniel utilizes him on the Dolphins, he's even more valuable, Kansas City, I don't think, regrets seeing him leave. Not to mention, when they dealt, the pick they used was Trent McDuffie, a corner, a University of Washington. Go Huskies. Yesterday, just towards the end of the first half, Tyreek Hill's got the ball. Trent McDuffie jars it loose. Ball pops to Edwards. He laterals it to Brian Cook, and Brian Cook returns it for a touchdown, which turned out to be the game winner, with the Chiefs edging the Dolphins 21-14. So the deal that helped the Dolphins a ton, it was a better trade for Kansas City yesterday because it ultimately beat them. I look at Mahomes. He has to run a lot more this year than he has in past seasons. This team needs to make decisions. I think they need to use Isaiah Pacheco more and run the football more than they have in any year that Patrick Mahomes has been in the league, because I don't think the receiving core is very good. Kelsey's still very effective, still a very good tight end, but he is 34. And I think he's looking 34. I don't think he looks 29. I don't think he looks as spry as he has in past years. Maybe it's the Taylor Swift mist going on top of him, but I don't think he's played that good of football. Just one man's opinion. I think he's still great, but he's not elite. And that could be injury related as well. But Valdez, Scantling, Kadarius, Toney, again, we've been through it. I don't like the receiving core. I don't think they get open all that much. And they have their holes on this team. It goes on an opening drive touchdown, but after that, the offense was anemic. But the Chiefs' defense, led by Chris Jones and Tranquil, who I thought was fantastic yesterday, and Leo Chanel, who's a white linebacker, but he plays fantastic. It looks like he shouldn't be athletic whatsoever, but he makes so many great open tackles in space. McDuffie at corner makes big plays. This team has a great defense. A defense that I think the Dolphins thought they're going to have this year under Vic Fangio. And while Christian Wilkins, I thought, was the best player on the field for the Dolphins yesterday, and he is in a lot of games, Jalen Ramsey made some good plays, but the Chiefs are led by that defense. And in today's league, defenses certainly help you. You need them to win. Bengals, in large part, won last night because their defense that big stop in the clutch moments to edge the Cowboys. So that should give Kansas City hope. And you do have Patrick Mahomes. Maybe you can make this work. But I don't think they were as good a team as they were last year. The talent is eroding from this team. They didn't do anything at the trade deadline to upgrade at wide receiver, which I disagreed with, and I think it's a mistake. Martavis Bryant used to play for the Steelers, got suspended a bunch for, a lot of it was cannabis, which used to get suspended for being caught smoking weed, which was the dumbest thing ever, but that's a whole other story for another day. He was suspended a lot. He recently got reinstated by the NFL. If I'm the Chiefs, I'm signing him. I'm bringing him in at least for a look. If Nick Robertson can get recalled from the Marlies, Martavis Bryant can get a look from the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a deep threat. He's fast. He's got good hands. You can't get suspended for smoking weed anymore, so he should be fine. He just brings something different to the table. They need a change in philosophy in Kansas City. Need some more high-end talent. Because they got everything they could out of Juju Smith-Schuster last year. He gave them everything he had, and he's got nothing in New England. Nothing. His body's broke. He's no good. He's been inactive in half their games. So you know what he is. It was so smart not to bring him in. Hindsight, Jacoby Myers was a smart addition for the Raiders. He might have been a good piece in Kansas City, but you decided to stick with what you had and hoping that it could turn out. Rashee Rice, oddly enough, Rashee Rice is the guy I look at and go, this might be their game changer. This guy might be the guy to pop off the screen and scoring big touchdowns for this team in the playoffs. Because he's got the speed. He scored a touchdown yesterday. He has all the trappings of a very good player. Kansas City and Philly were both in the Super Bowl last year, and they're both in similar positions. Kansas City's first in the AFC, Philly first in the NFC. I think both teams have their warts. Both teams have had their moments of being really unimpressive, but they still have very good records. They still sit at the top. And I'm not going to bet against Patrick Mahomes. I do think for Kansas City, getting that first seed in the AFC is really important. Having home field is paramount. They got to play good football down the stretch to get there. For the Miami Dolphins, two things. It's easy to say the Dolphins can't beat good teams, which is true, by the way. They can't. I texted that to my mother last night. She didn't like that comment, but I mean, as my girl Lizzo says, truth hurts. And they can't. The Dolphins are a very good team. Tua's fun, and Mike McDaniel, and apparently he wears a $50,000 watch. Source, my dad. Don't know how he knows what kind of watch he was wearing, but he sent that to me yesterday, so there's a fun little tidbit. Mike McDaniel has a $50,000 watch. Sunglasses don't look cheap either. Seems like he's a interesting little guy, and he's got his quirks, and I'm in it. I like it. I'm happy Tua's played every game this year. No really threats of an injury, no concussions. That's all great. But you play the Bills, and you get smoked. You play the Eagles, you lose by 2 touchdowns. You play Kansas City on a neutral site, and they don't score a point in the second half, and you still lose. That just simply can't happen. If you're presented those circumstances and you don't find a way to win, it's not acceptable. Not to mention, Kansas City had 3 more penalties than Miami yesterday. And I thought Miami took some stupid penalties, in particular in the first half. They led time of possession, more total yards, more passing yards, more rushing yards. But these two teams played pretty horrible yesterday, neutral site. Miami was 3 for 12 on third down. Kansas City 3 for 10. Tyreek Hill, who was setting records, had a decent day, 8 for 62, but he lost a fumble, which cost him the game. Jalen Waddle was banged up. They should have ran the ball more because it was working in the second half with Raheem Mostert. He only ran the ball 12 times, not enough. And again, you're playing the best teams and they seem to shrink. They can't find a way to put themselves over the top and into a position to be with the best teams. You force a fumble, which leads to a touchdown. You go into the fourth quarter needing a touchdown to tie the game. You don't score a point in the fourth quarter. With that offense and how explosive it is, that's your team. That's what you're built on. And Kansas City does have a great defense, don't get me wrong. But Buffalo doesn't really. Tell that to Joe Burrow last night. Didn't seem to have a whole lot of problems playing against a Buffalo defense. Sure, it's banged up. I don't care. Points are points. To me, Miami's not a physical team, which can be problematic. You're not a physical. You're built on finesse. You're built on razzle dazzle and sparkly plays, and you expected everybody to love it, and it's fun to watch. When I was a Dolphins fan, I grew up for 20 years with nothing. Watching the Dolphins, you don't get a feeling watching the Dolphins teams. At least this team is fun. But to me, I still believe this. With Zach Wilson at quarterback, I believe the Jets can still win the AFC East. They have the team to do it. They have the defense to do it. Salah's making a believer out of me as a head coach. They got the Chargers tonight, Monday night. Really important game to win because you're 5-3. You'll be a game back of the Dolphins. The Dolphins have their bye week coming up. Certainly more difficult of a task with Zach Wilson not having Aaron Rodgers. But I look at the Jets compared to this Dolphins team, and I just go, okay. You have Tyreek and you have Jalen, and Tua's a good quarterback. But when the first read isn't there and the second read isn't there for Tua, the game kind of breaks down. He doesn't have the ability to scramble out of the pocket or make plays happen like a Mahomes. That's just not his game. He's more of a pocket passer more than he is a scramble run type quarterback, which is surprising because you'd think, okay, new generation of quarterback. He's more of the old school, except he's a lefty. I'm not going to believe in the Dolphins until they beat a good team. Simple as that. Down the stretch here for the Dolphins, they got the Raiders when they return from their bye week. Then they play at the Jets on the Good Friday game. Play the Jets twice down the stretch, which are difficult games. Play the Commanders in Washington. This is their next few. Home to the Titans. Jets, they do have the Cowboys on Christmas Day. Or Christmas Eve, pardon me. What are these Christmas games? Raiders, Chiefs, somewhat more interesting now. You get Patrick Mahomes. They also get the Raiders, who won a game yesterday. Giants, Eagles. Ravens, 49ers, nightcap. That's good. But if the Dolphins beat the Cowboys and beat the Jets twice, you're going to win your division. They control their own destiny to get to the playoffs and have a home playoff game, which the city of Miami has not had in a very long time. Been a minute. I'm going to look that up just for fun here. Last Dolphins. The last Dolphins home playoff game was in I believe it was 1996, the last home playoff game. Couple wild card rounds in there, losing to the Steelers in 16 and losing to the Bills last year, but all in Buffalo. But not exactly an impressive showing. for the fish. But they're a good team, but they're not a great team because they can't beat them. And if you can't beat them, you don't get to join the club. Sorry. Baltimore Ravens. A couple weeks ago, they beat Detroit at home 37-3. Just a dismantling performance. A couple weeks later, they crushed Seattle 37-3. Same score. They improved to 7-2. They sacked Geno Smith 4 times, intercepted him, forced a fumble, only allowed 1.8 yards per carry yesterday. The defense is playing at an elite level, and so is the offense. If you look at Lamar's numbers, 21 for 26, 187 yards passing, doesn't exactly scream, oh. But Mitchell ran 9 times for 138 yards, 1 touchdown. He had 2 touchdowns by Gus Edwards. Tyler Huntley entered the game. He threw a touchdown pass to Odell Beckham Jr. This team continues to blossom, continues to develop, show people what they're made of. They have so many options, whether it's run the football with Edwards or go to Lamar with the RPO. Go to Mark Andrews as the ultimate safety net for Lamar Jackson. OBJ healthy, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely. This team has weapons. They have a good defense. They have belief. They play great at home. They look like the real deal. To me, they look like the best team in the AFC right now, even though they are behind Kansas City. I think Baltimore has looked the most consistent all year long. Lamar Jackson's played phenomenal football. He fumbled yesterday, but that's going to happen. You have to live with that. That's one of their Achilles heels, is he's going to turn the football over at times because he runs and he takes chances that other quarterbacks don't. But at the same time, he's Lamar Jackson, and you want him on your team. I look at this pass rush before the year, and I said, I don't know if they're going to be great at rushing the passer, because you look around and go, who's really great on this team? Who's elite? They had 4 sacks yesterday. They have 34 sacks on the season as a team. Seattle has 8. Just to put that into perspective here. Justin Mazubiki, he's a force. Sack against Houston, sack against Cleveland, sack, 2 sacks against Tennessee, 1 against Detroit, 1 against Arizona. He's averaging a sack per game. That'll work. Roquan Smith, he just tackles people. Jadeveon Clowney. Kyle Van Noy, who they picked up off the street, former Charger, former Patriot. 2 sacks yesterday and a forced fumble. He had 2 sacks against Detroit. Wasn't on the team, gets 2 sacks. It's more about the scheme than it is really the players. I look at Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator. He's having smart blitzes, corners coming at you. You never know when they're going to attack on that defense. Kyle Hamilton, former Notre Dame product, is so versatile because he could drop into coverage. He might blitz. They just make everything so difficult on the opposing quarterback to read what's going to happen. And Geno Smith could not do it yesterday. Seattle's got a 5-3 record, but they should have lost to Cleveland, but Cleveland threw them the game. They probably have 2 games on their schedule that they should have lost. And I think Seattle might be the most fraudulent 5-3 team, because I just look at them and go, Geno's turned the ball over a ton. I like their skill position players, but their offensive line is no good. Jason Peters is playing snaps at 41 years old. I expect them to regress in the back half of the season because I just don't like their depth. I don't like what they're bringing to the table. Baltimore, this can be sustainable. Lamar Jackson absolutely could win the MVP this year. I'm not going to predict that because he's already won one. They don't like to give it to multiple people, seemingly. But he's playing at that kind of level, and if this team has a great record, that only helps his chances. Not to mention, if you could win your division, the AFC North is the toughest division in the NFL. You have Baltimore at 7-2, the Steelers at 5-3, the Browns at 5-3, and the Cincinnati Bengals at 5-3. All these teams could be playoff teams. Absolutely. You never know. Cincinnati, horrible start to the year. Joe Burrow injured. You go into San Francisco and you beat the 49ers. And they beat the Bills last night to drop the Bills to 5-4. To me, since Jamar Chase didn't even have a great game last night. But Joe Burrow throwing a touchdown to Drew Sample, a backup tight end, and Irv Smith Jr. in the back of the end zone. Joe Mixon looks like he's got a pep in his step, looks a little rejuvenated. Offensive line is playing better. And then Lou Anarumo in that defense. Hendrickson, Logan Wilson, Daxton Hill. These guys are playing really good football. Awuzie coming up with interceptions of Josh Allen. Just a quick word on Buffalo. I don't think that team knows what their identity is. They're a team that does have a lot of talent, but they don't know what they're doing with it. Stephon Diggs pissed off. Von Miller playing less and less snaps. He didn't play 30 snaps last night. What's he doing on your team? This is the Bills are 5-4. This is their schedule. They host the Broncos next Monday night. Host the Jets. Go to Philadelphia. Go to Kansas City. Host the Cowboys. Go to the Chargers. Host the Patriots. Go to the Fish. How many games are they winning? Say they beat the Broncos 6-4. Do they beat the Jets? I don't know. They beat the Jets at 7-4, lose to the Eagles, lose to the Chiefs 7-6, lose to the Cowboys 7-7. They're going to be like a 9, maybe a 10-win team in Buffalo. I don't see how they win the division. I think they'll be lucky to make the playoffs in the AFC. Winter is coming in Buffalo in more ways than one because they just don't know what they're doing. We love Stephon Diggs, so we feel pressure to give him the football, but then he doesn't get the football all that much last night. So, like Dalton Kincaid had 10 catches for 81 yards. They don't trust Gabe Davis. He didn't have a target last night. Was hardly used. Trent Sherfield's on the field. They run the football for over 4 yards a carry. They only ran the ball 16 times last night. Josh Allen threw it 38. He's Superman. And that's what they feel their team has to be. I disagree with it. Defense last night did not come up with a sack. No sacks at Joey B. No turnovers. Jordan Poyer's great, but he needs some help back there. I mean, the Bills are a loss away from having the same record as Indianapolis Colts with Gardner Minshew, for Christ's sake. Sean McDermott running the defense because you fire Leslie Frazier. Well, McDermott's head coach, he's running the defense. That's what you need help on, and your defense isn't elite. They're not playing at a high level. Teams are taking advantage of you. Joe Burrow, clean pocket last night, had a pretty easy night. Easy work at the office. Thankfully, it's Sunday Night Football, and you have the Damar Hamlin situation that kind of scrapes over another loss. But the Bills are 5-4. You're in big trouble. Josh Allen is so talented, but then again, you look at it and go, something just isn't right here. It's not working for him in Buffalo with this offense. He just makes some throws that are... I think the Bengals should have won by more than they did last night, quite frankly. They should have crushed the Bills. Turned it to be 24-18. Didn't have to be that close. But looking at Baltimore play, Kansas City, Dolphins lost to Buffalo in Buffalo. I think the Dolphins are as good as Buffalo. They're about the same. They're both good teams, not great. They both kind of make stupid decisions. They take penalties. They have plays in the game. You go, what the hell just happened? What was that decision? What was that play call? Why did you do that? But to me, the Bengals would be the scariest team because they're just getting better and better. They're starting to rev up. Joe Burrow, that defense, Jamar Chase. They got a tough road ahead because you got to go through the AFC North. And every team has a winning record. And that's difficult. But Cincinnati wins those division games late in seasons. They lose them early on. They lost to Cleveland. Then they lost to Baltimore. Bengals got the Texans next weekend, which is interesting. You have Browns-Ravens, which is a great divisional game in Baltimore. Pittsburgh's still lurking. Pittsburgh's still winning games somehow with Mike Tomlin throwing his voodoo over the rest of the NFL. But that's going to be a bloodbath to the finish in the AFC North, because I don't know how many playoff teams are going to come out of that division, but you're going to have to be great to get there. And Baltimore has put themselves in the best position. The rest of the day is the big news of the morning. It just got announced. Daniel Jones, quarterback of the New York Giants, was returning from a neck injury he suffered against the Dolphins, missed the last 3 games. Played yesterday, suffered a torn ACL. He's done for the season. He's in year 1 of a 4-year contract worth $160 million, which we've talked about a lot on the show. Giants are now 2-7. Tyrod Taylor is hurt, their backup quarterback. Daniel Jones is out for the season, and now Tommy DeVito looks like the starting quarterback moving forward, who threw 2 interceptions on his first 3 passes yesterday in a loss to the Vegas Raiders. I mean, I don't want to see somebody get hurt, but Daniel Jones has been playing bad football all year. The Giants are a bad team. With this news, they are going to be one of the worst. I think they'll be a top 5 pick team now. I don't see how they win many games down the stretch. How are they going to beat teams in their own division? I don't see how that happens. So with that being said, having a pick in the top 5, you're going to have a look at some quarterbacks. If you've been watching college football, in particular this weekend, some guys had some really impressive showings. Michael Penix Jr., Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Drake May. The Giants are going to be looking and saying, we're sitting here Should we take a guy? Should we draft a quarterback? The answer is yes, because Daniel Jones is not that guy, and oddly enough, Arizona and the Giants could be in both the similar position this offseason where they're going to be drafting a quarterback of the future and still have a guy worth a lot of money on their roster. Daniel Jones and Kyler Murray down in the desert. I don't think either guy is the quarterback moving forward. But the Giants, with this news, you'll never tank, quote unquote. Trade deadline's over and you have the games. When Tommy DeVito's your quarterback, you're likely not going to win. So whether Brian Daboll's the coach for the next quarterback or whatever the hell happens, the Giants are going to be in an interesting position because they're not going to win many games. They just aren't. They don't have the talent. They don't have the coaches. They're just a bad I didn't think they'd be good this year. I didn't think they'd be this bad. But with this news, and you get crushed by the Raiders, who scored the 30 points for the first time in a game this season yesterday, does not look good for the Giants. But Daniel Jones out for the remainder of the season. Credit to Vegas. Antonio Pierce's first game as a head coach. They go in at home, beat the G-Men. It wasn't much of a game. Aiden O'Connell didn't turn the ball over. Positive thing. Josh Jacobs had his best game of the year, 2 rushing touchdowns. Jacoby Myers had a rushing touchdown. But a solid win there. How about this story? I'm watching Minnesota-Atlanta. First quarter, right towards the end of the first quarter, Jaren Hall scrambling for the end zone. He takes a big hit, and immediately he's ruled out with a concussion. In comes Josh Dobbs, who was traded from Arizona to Minnesota on Tuesday. So he's had 4 days to learn the system, to get acclimated to being a member of the Minnesota Vikings, no longer on the Arizona Cardinals. And he comes in and balls out. In particular on the last drive. About 36 seconds, 4th and 8. He looks like he's going to get sacked. He gets grabbed by the ankle, escapes. A scramble for 10 yards on a 4th and 8. He gets the first down, and then he throws a strike to Brandon Powell for a touchdown. Vikings on the road get the W. Are still very much in the mix for a wild card spot in the NFC. Jaren Hall's a rookie. He would not be going back to him moving forward. Josh Dobbs is the guy. 20 for 30, 158, 2 touchdowns. He fumbled twice, but he was big when he had to be. He ran the ball 7 times for 66 yards. He had himself a day and a rushing touchdown. Green Lizard played okay, but a frustrating loss for Atlanta where they probably felt they were going to win. Same thing for another team in the NFC South. Baker Mayfield goes on a long drive, and he throws a strike with 36 seconds to put the Bucs in front of the Texans. Just incredible theater. Not to mention in this game, Houston had lost their kicker, so they couldn't kick extra points. They went for 2-point conversions 3 times. But Baker Mayfield goes down the field. He throws a touchdown strike to Cade Otton, second of the game. 36 seconds, you think, okay, we got this game won. On comes C.J. Stroud. Houston has not had a good quarterback since Deshaun Watson. C.J. Stroud's better than Deshaun Watson. Houston already knows that they have their quarterback of the future, and I think they already know they won the draft. He's going to be better than Bryce Young. He's going to be better than Anthony Richardson. He's on the field. He's playing well. 36-second drive. He's a rookie damn quarterback. He goes down the field, throws a strike to Tank Dell. How about this yesterday? 30 for 42, 470, 5 touchdowns. Just incredible stuff. Noah Brown, 6 for 153. Dalton Schultz, 10 for $130. Tank Dell, 6 for $114. 3 receivers, over 100 yards, 5 touchdown passes, most by a rookie quarterback in a single game. And with the win, they stay in the mix. They are now 4-4. The Bucs would have been 4-4 in a very weird NFC South. But instead, CJ Stroud goes, no, we're going to be 4-4, fighting for a wild card spot in the AFC down the stretch. He had one kind of poor game against Carolina when Carolina beat them. Other than that, he has been a machine all year. He's been a leader. He has his teammates over for dinner. I think he's already fringe top 10 quarterback. He's doing all the things you need to get there. He's got the arm talent. He throws strikes. Texans never expected to win this game, and they get a huge, huge victory just to get that city excited about football again, because they've had nothing to be excited about for many, many years. They have a quarterback. When you have a quarterback, you have hope. CJ Stroud, hell of a performance yesterday. The Commanders beat the Patriots. Oh, not to mention, I love CJ Stroud. He goes on that touchdown drive. You seal the win. Again, they don't have their kicker, so you can't kick the extra point. And if you're a degenerate gambler, this is why you like them. They win the game 39-37. They failed on a 2-point conversion. The line was Houston minus 2.5. I had Tampa plus 2.5. So I get a great beat. And the Bucs cover. So I still win my bet. And CJ Stroud is an awesome game. Love it. Another one of my doggy picks. Commanders beat the Patriots. Commanders are stupid. I'm thinking they're up 10-0 at one point. They're going to lose this game. Right before the half, they get a first down. They have 26 seconds on the clock. They don't call a timeout. They have 3 of them. Sam Howell rolls out. Throws a bad end zone interception. I go, oh my God. What the hell? But they go through the rest of the game, and New England's offense, which is putrid, continues. And Mac Jones has an opportunity late to go down and get a field goal, tie the game, maybe overtime. But he throws an interception, seals the win for the Commanders. They are now 4-5, so they stay in the mix, quote unquote. And the Patriots fall to 2-7. Just a dreadful season for the Patriots. They now have to get on a bird, fly to Frankfurt, Germany, and play the Colts, who won in Carolina yesterday. Gardner Minshew gets a big with 2 pick sixes by Kenny Moore of Bryce Young. Again, these overseas games, you're going to get an awesome one, like Chiefs-Dolphins. And then you're going to get a stinker, like Colts-Patriots, but you live with it. Packers beat the Rams. Browns skunked the Cardinals. That Cardinals plus 13.5 bet didn't pan out. Clayton Tune. Also for Arizona, Kyler Murray's not playing. He can be healthy and active the rest of the year. He's not playing for me. I want a quarterback. I want to lose every game. I don't want Kyler Murray out there. He's going to help you win. Embrace the tank. Battle with Carolina for the worst position in the NFL. And you want to talk about a game Thursday night where the Bears are going to be playing so hard to win this game? Thursday night this week is Bears-Panthers. Woof. Justin Fields, who knows if he'll be back on a short week. The Bears own their first rounder. They also own Carolina's first rounder. Carolina's got 1 win, so they're at the bottom. The Bears want to win that game because it helps them. Yes, their pick will be worse, but Carolina's will remain exactly where it should be. So Bears are competing against themselves for draft picks on Thursday night. Saints beat the Bears yesterday, by the way. Saints are now 5-4. And I don't trust the Saints. They still should be better than what they are, but they're 5-4. And they go to play Minnesota next weekend. In Minnesota, which is interesting. And they're a favorite. But I thought it was a great NFL day. A lot of action, great games, come from behinds, things you didn't expect. Anything's checking if there's any other NFL news before we move on here. Nope, just Daniel Jones this morning. So we'll move on from the NFL. I'll talk about college briefly here because it was a great college football day. First of all, Saturday night you get games starting at the same time. LSU, Alabama, and Washington, USC. Washington, USC it was an excellent game. One of the craziest first halves I've ever seen. Full of everything that you'd want. Bad tackling, horrible defense, and two quarterbacks putting on a show. Caleb Williams with 3 touchdowns. 3 rushing touchdowns for Washington, but they're putting up points. The big mistake for USC, Caleb Williams fumbles right before the half, which puts Washington up in front. But USC gives up 52 points. They lose 52-42. Caleb Williams is crying with his family on the sidelines. They suffered their 3rd loss of the season. They're now outside of the AP top 25. They fired their defensive coordinator, Alex Grinch, yesterday. He's finally gone. But, I mean, you got the talent you have, the talent you got. They got to play Oregon next weekend, which is not a fun task because I think Oregon's better. But a huge win for Washington. I think this was a scare game for them. Penix balled out. Their running game's gotten better. Good offensive line. They look phenomenal winning a tough road game. Penix, I think in the Heisman race currently, J.J. McCarthy's on an undefeated team, but I don't think he's as good as Bo Nix. I don't think he's as good as Penix. I think, to me, Penix will be number 1 for me. Bo Nix not far behind. You could put J.J. McCarthy in there, maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. at Ohio State. Alabama beats LSU. So LSU and USC both now have 3 losses on the season, with Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley both kind of struggling to find their foot at their new locations. Jalen Milroe had 4 rushing touchdowns for Alabama. Both these quarterbacks were balling out, quite frankly. They putting on a show, finding guys down the field, scrambling, but just Alabama made some stops in the big moments. They found a way to slow down the offense when LSU just simply couldn't, like they haven't all year. Alabama puts up 42, and they're not a great offense. Jaden Daniels, 15 for 24, 219, 2 touchdowns, rushing touchdown. He got hurt. He ran the ball 11 times for 163 yards. Then you look at Jalen Milroe, 15 for 23, 219. 4 rush touchdowns. He ran 20 times for 155 yards. Alabama averaged over 5 yards a carry as a team. They ran for over almost 300 yards on LSU. Brian Kelly's got to be looking in the mirror going, what the hell? What am I doing here? My team just doesn't play defense. We got Florida coming up. But a 3-loss team, you're going to play in another bowl game that you don't really care about, quite frankly. So on the weekend, Arizona beats UCLA. Big win for Arizona. They've been a good team all year. Oregon State edges Coach Prime in Colorado. University of Miami loses another bag. They only put up 6 points against NC State. They're now both 6-3. Miami has Florida State this coming weekend, rivalry weekend. Michigan crushes Purdue. Kansas beats Iowa State. Mentioned Bo Nix in Oregon. They win 63-19 against Cal. Bo Nix, 29 for 38, 386 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. He's been great all year. Penn State beats Maryland. Their big game is this weekend. They are hosting Michigan. Must-win game for them if they want to remain in the college football playoff mix. Missouri, great battle against Georgia. Cook had a great start to the game. They're running the football, making things happen. But ultimately, I think Carson Beck's getting better as the weeks go on. I think he's a really strong quarterback. He doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. I think he's very good. And Georgia, in the big moments, they came up with turnovers, they came up with sacks. Their defense bailed them out, and they improve. They get another big victory. They win 30-21 against a ranked Mizzou team. Again, Georgia trying to win 3 straight national championships. They're not as good as they have been in past seasons, but they don't have to be. They have to be as good as their competition this year. They get a test this coming weekend against Ole Miss at home. Probably the biggest win, Oklahoma State beating Oklahoma. This is going to be their last meeting for a long time. Oklahoma's moving to the SEC. The rivalry known as Bedlam. Oklahoma State, Alan Bowman, senior quarterback. Hell of a performance from him. He played extremely well. Gordon ran the ball well for them. Presley, Owens, who looked like making just big catch after big catch, taking huge hits. So Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma. Oklahoma now has 2 losses. Oklahoma State now is also 7-2. They have an opportunity to play themselves into the Big 12 title game alongside Texas, who survived an overtime game against Kansas State. No Quinn Ewers, had a huge lead, 27-7 lead, 20 unanswered points for Kansas State, but they escape in overtime. That's the biggest thing for Texas. Big 12 is completely wide open. No team has really grabbed it yet. Texas is 8-1. They had the best record. They go to TCU this weekend, who have not had a great year. TCU sitting at 4-5 after 9 games. But some really impressive performances. Great quarterbacks, great theater. Last 3 to 4 weekends of college football, all these games are important. All these games mean something. Looking ahead to next weekend, we got another really good slate in college football. Saturday, 1 o'clock, Michigan, Penn State. Poof, Big Ten battle. Alabama at Kentucky. Moving to the 4:30 games, I mentioned Miami at Florida State. Florida State still undefeated. Miami trying to play spoiler. Tennessee at Missouri. 2 2-loss teams in the SEC, but 2 teams that are both very good. Rutgers, Iowa will take the under. 2 good teams, however. Let's look at Ole Miss, Georgia, Florida, LSU, Texas, TCU, Michigan State, Ohio State, Duke, North Carolina, which is an interesting game. And at 11:30, USC and Oregon. Surprised that's an 11:30 kick because it's a super important game for both teams. But another great slate coming up of college Football. To the NHL. The Maple Leafs drop another one. Lost their fourth straight to the Buffalo Sabres on Saturday night. You know the depth is bad. When Toronto, they had their one little chip to pull this year from the Marlies that I think they view it as a secret weapon. I view it as a desperation play. And that's Nick Robertson, the call-up. He gets recalled this morning. Pontus Holmberg gets sent down to the American League. And quite frankly, Pontus Holmberg has not been as good as Fraser Minten since being called up. And Fraser Minten's now in the WHL, so you're not getting him back. But I don't think he's been as good. He's not as big. He doesn't bring as much to the table. So Nick Robertson gets recalled, and I'm assuming he'll be playing in the top six because he doesn't fit in the National Hockey League when he's not playing in the top six. I haven't seen the lines yet. But that's just a projection because I wouldn't recall him if he's playing in my bottom six because he just can't. And that's not really an opinion. That's a fact. But again, just one thought. Problem for the Toronto Maple Leafs, their best players have been fantastic. Matthews has 11 goals, which leads the NHL. Bill Nylander has points in 11 straight games, which leads the NHL. Their depth for Toronto has been putrid. Tyler Bertuzzi, Max Domi, two big additions, do not have an even strength goal in the team's first 11 games. No even strength goals in their first 11 games. And while I think we've heard more about them, and more that they've been bad and haven't been as good and not as advertised, this, that, and the third, the worst of the additions has been John Klingberg, bar none. He gets worse every game he plays. His decision-making with the puck, his inability to read things, to see what's going to happen before it gets there is truly staggering to me. John Klingberg's been a liability for the Toronto Maple Leafs every time he's on the ice. He's not good on the power play. And when he's not putting up points, he's not dynamic, he's no good to you. And that was always the risk to giving a guy $4.1 million when he's been dog shit in Minnesota and in Anaheim the last couple of years. But that's the cross to bear. Matthews was fantastic on Saturday night. Nylander was wonderful. Marner's actually playing better hockey. And Morgan Rielly, I think, has been very good through 11 games. Joseph Woll, he gave up 5 goals. I don't think he was that bad, quite frankly. A lot of those goals, the Alex Tuck goal, how are you going to stop that? You're not. Hit off his shoulder and it goes in the net. The 4-3 goal by Jordan Greenwood, that's just a breakdown. That's a defensive breakdown that, again, Matthews scores a goal and then he stays on the ice too long. They get lost. They don't know who their man is, and they score a goal. The top line being out there for a goal against. That was just bad matchups and bad defensive play, quite frankly. But you score 4 goals, you should win the game. But you don't because your defensive play sucks. And the problem is, that was a game you score 4 and you think, okay, we're going to break out of our slump. We beat the Buffalo Sabres who are on a back-to-back. They just got crushed by the Flyers the night before, and yet they come in here and beat us. Alex Tuck with the game winner and the empty netter. And Dylan Cousins didn't play either, by the way, for Buffalo, who's one of the more important players. Kind of have to win that game, folks. Kind of have to go in there and do it. Robertson's being recalled because nobody on that bottom 6 provides anything. I think Gregor's their best option still because he moves his feet, and at least he's moving out there and things can happen. Reeves is a flat-out liability every time he's on the ice. You could be an analytics person. You could be an eye test person. If you're watching Ryan Reeves on the ice and thinks he's effective, you don't know what you're watching. I thought it was stupid to sign him from the second it happened. You can put a tough guy around a bunch of people, but when the tough guy leaves, those bunch of people that were tough before aren't going to be that tough. Trying to lift some weights, get tougher here. But I'm a hell of a lot more confident when I'm around a guy like, say, my friend Nick or my friend Sawyer, because they both know how to fight and beat people up. I'm not as braggadocious when they're not around. Well, sometimes I am because I just don't know when to shut it, but that's a whole other story. This Maple Leafs team all has the same temperament. They're all nice. They're just a nice bunch of nice little guys. They hang out with Bieber and they're nice people, right? You can appreciate that. I don't like that with my team. I don't want a bunch of nice people, but maybe Leafs Nation does. But Reeves doesn't help you. Though that one instance every 5 games when he's going to fight, it's so irrelevant because you need him. What are the other 4 games when he's out there and he's nothing but a problem? The opposing coach salivates because he goes, my 4th line, who I might not like, is better than theirs because we're playing 3-on-2. And if Klingberg's on the ice, you're playing 5-on-3, really. Robertson comes up. I'm curious to see where he plays tonight. I read yesterday that Nyes was on the top line. You knew that was going to happen. Yarncroke was on the 3rd line. Maybe they put Robertson with Domi and Yarncroke. Domi playing center. I could see that would maybe work. I stand by the fact that I don't think Robertson's an NHL player. I just don't. But this is their little pet that they have to work with. Hope that he can come up and provide something. And maybe he will. I'm not rooting against him. I just don't think he's a great player. And I don't think he's an NHLer. But we'll see. Holmberg down. Nick Robertson likely to make his NHL season debut tonight. Simon Benoit will also make his debut tonight in for Max Lajoie. And Jake McCabe will not return yet. He's on the road to recovery. But the Leafs play 4 games in 6 nights. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Home to Tampa tonight. Home to Ottawa on Wednesday. Home to Calgary in the Hall of Fame game on Friday, and then they host the Red Hot Canucks on Saturday night. Speaking of the Canucks, they beat Dallas, shut them out on Saturday night. Demko's great. Quinn Hughes, this team's playing I'm so impressed with the Canucks and Ducks because I like watching them play. The Ducks beat Vegas last night, had them their first regulation loss of the season. In 1 week, Mason McTavish had 3 game-winning goals. That's damn impressive. Not to mention, Anaheim's won 6 straight. Going from the road, playing at home, then going back on the road. No scheduled loss for the Anaheim Ducks. Sorry, Leafs fans. Just the truth. But Vancouver, Anaheim, they bring something new to the season because actually they might probably, either of them could miss the playoffs. But I like watching them play. They play a style. They care. I can appreciate that. When before, who cared? I didn't. Anaheim was the worst watch in the league because they were so pathetic. So bad. But they're playing a fun style. And you get an overtime winner against Crosby. Then you get an overtime winner against the Desert Dogs. And you get an overtime winner against the best team in the NHL, the Vegas Golden Knights. You're establishing yourself. You're putting yourself on the map. So are the Anaheim Ducks as a team. Boston also suffered their first regulation loss of the season on Saturday night in Detroit. This is a big week for the Edmonton Oilers. Big week. They're playing Vancouver tonight in the team's third meeting of the season. Stuart Skinner likely to go against Thatcher Demko in Vancouver. But they're in Vancouver. Then the Oilers play Thursday against the Sharks. The Sharks, if you're not following, are 0-10-1. They've lost their last two games by a combined score of 20-3 and are flat out embarrassing. Oilers are 2-7-1, so not much better. Oilers getting crushed by the Predators over the weekend with Ryan O'Reilly getting a hat trick. I think if the Oilers lose these two games, there will be significant change. Jay Woodcroft will likely be fired, whether it's his fault or not. Kenny Holland's in his last year. Maybe ownership would fire him. I don't know. But if you start your season 2-9-1 and expectations were to win the Stanley Cup and you're the best team in the league and you had the two best players and you start out that piss poor, something will give. And I think the barometer for a lot of teams right now is how you do against San Jose. San Jose is that team you go, oh my God, this team is so terrible. We can beat them. We can turn it around because we have San Jose on our schedule. Pittsburgh, down in the dumps, looks older than Methuselah. Just horrible. They go in there and they crush San Jose. Vancouver crushes them 10-0. And San Jose lost these two games on home ice by those combined scores. Just dreadful. But for Edmonton, if it does not go well this week, something will happen. Because that fan base will demand, I think that ownership group is going to demand it, because you can't look at this group and go, we can't be this bad. The god-awful Calgary Flames look better than us right now. They have more wins than us, true. Also on the weekend, Adam Fox was placed on LTIR. Heedle was also placed on IR for the Rangers, a couple injuries in their Thursday matchup against the Hurricanes. And Jack Hughes crashed into the boards awkwardly Friday night against St. Louis. He's out week to week. Undetermined how long he'll be out. But New Jersey did play without him last night. They got a win in Chicago. It's a tough break because I think he was the best player over the first month of the season. No real timeline when he'll return, but he's week to week for the Devils. Could have been a hell of a lot worse. So he'll return. Tonight you got Tampa in Toronto. Blue Jackets, Florida. Boston and Dallas, two very good teams. And Oilers, Canucks. Monday Night Football, Chargers at the Jets. Chargers laying 3.5. I like the Jets tonight, plus 3.5. Their defense, I think they might not win, but I think they'll keep it close. Big slate of NBA games. Victor Wembanyama's been must-see TV. He lost to the Raptors yesterday, but he's playing phenomenal. James Harden will make his LA Clipper debut tonight at the Mecca in New York. Lakers Heat this evening. Boston Celtics still undefeated 5-0. They go into Minnesota. You also get Pelicans Nuggets. Nuggets are 6-1. Pelicans have been great. This coming weekend, UFC 295. Can't wait for that. I'm going to be watching that with some friends. It's going to be a good time. We had a Sao Paulo event this weekend. Jailton Almeida beats Derek Lewis, the Black Beast, in the main event. He had the most control time in a UFC fight in the history of the promotion, over 21 minutes in a 25-minute fight. But he never went for the kill. He never got close to finishing the fight. And while he got the victory, I don't think it was that impressive of a night for Jailton Almeida. He calls out Cyril Gane, which I can appreciate. I think that's smart of him. But I don't think that win got him to a Cyril Gane. I don't think Cyril Gane's going to take that fight. I could see him fighting Curtis Blades, and Curtis Blade is healthy because he had been finishing other guys. He never got close to finishing the Black Beast. And yes, it's a win, but I wasn't all that impressed with Jailton Almeida. Biggest win of the night, Nicholas Dalby, the Dane. Huge TKO win over Gabriel Bonfim. Bonfim, undefeated to this point, rising superstar. He ran out of gas in this fight. Dalby laid on the punches in the second round and just completely wore him out. Dalby 38, but just seems to have incredible cardio every time he steps in there. Dalby's never been finished in his UFC career or his pro career. Gabriel Bonfim gets knocked out. Ismail Bonfim missed weight by over 4 pounds, didn't fight in the weekend, so a tough weekend for the Bonfim brothers. Rinat Fikadonmov, one loss on his pro career. Another one of these guys that's surging. He fights Alinos Dos Santos, ended a majority draw. Rinat came out looking great in the first round and a half, but he ran out of gas, similar to Hamzat Chimaev in Abu Dhabi. And I thought it was a correct decision. Both these guys fought very well. It's an excellent battle. But the stock of Rinat goes down a little bit. Angela Hill beats Denise Gomez, her 12th UFC win, tied for most in strawweight history. So a big win for the veteran Angela Hill. And also announced Raquel Pennington and Moina Buena Silva will fight for the vacant bantamweight women's title at UFC 297 on January 20th in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Ariel Helwani reported that Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira, too, will headline that card, but Islam's manager, Ali, denied that report, but him and Ariel do have beef, so who knows what will happen there. But you got pay-per-view this coming weekend, which I can't wait. We're watching that with the boys, getting ready. 2 title fights, some awesome theater at the Mecca in Madison Square Garden. We'll preview that as the week goes on. But enjoy the rest of your Monday. Enjoy the games tonight. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Just to the point.